What's going on, everybody? Good morning, good evening, or wherever you are, and whatever time it is. Welcome back to yet another video with you, man. Immersionholic, and ladies and gentlemen, welcome to yet another episode for our Abbasid campaign in the Medieval Kingdoms 1212 AD mod for Total War Attila. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our grand finale. I know some of you guys might be a little bit disappointed that this will be our final episode of our Abbasid campaign. However, the update for the mod has unfortunately made all previous save games incompatible. So if you were playing a campaign before the most recent update, you will have to start over again, and that's what we're going to have to do with future campaigns. So there will be more campaigns for this mod in the future. However, for the near future at least, we'll be focusing a little bit more on Divide and Impera and more online battles for this mod and DEI. However, let's get into it. So for this episode, we're hopefully going to be finishing off the Kingdom of Jerusalem. They have an army out here that's kind of just chilling in the Eastern Mediterranean. They look like that they want to fall back to the capital of Aqaba. That's the final Kingdom of Jerusalem's settlement. So they're kind of just chilling down there on the edge of the Sinai. Not really much of a threat, but we do need to take them because Aqaba is actually a very useful city in that it allows us to springboard multiple armies in multiple directions at once. So we can invade across the Red Sea, go west into Egypt, and then south down into towards the older areas of Egypt as well. So that should be pretty helpful. Caliph Jafar is currently recuperating his army in Damascus after a little fiasco with our money situation previously. Here's a little bit of an overview of the situation though. The Ayubids are actually pretty weak at this point in the game. They do have Hijaz, the province that houses the holy city of Mecca. They do have Yemen down here in southern Arabia. And then, of course, they have Egypt, Palestine, and Lebanon, actually, as well. But that's kind of the extent of their armies. Of their territory. They don't have many armies from what we can tell. And then we still have the Kingdom of Ethiopia down here to the far south, or the Mercurians, at least. Now that we've dealt them a serious blow, they're not really too much of a threat. However, we are expecting more potential invasions from them in the near future. To the far west, though, the west of Africa, we don't really know what's going on. We will get a very interesting pop-up very soon that you guys will find interesting. But basically, as far as we know, the west is entirely isolated from our influence, and we have no intelligence on what's going on up there. However, more towards Anatolia, things are a complete and utter mess. We have the Ottoman Sultanate, which is, again, a Christian Orthodox faction right now. That's just because they spawned in a Christian Orthodox area. They're fighting the Byzantines and a few other different factions, and basically all of Anatolia is in turmoil. The Kingdom of Georgia, though, currently controls the majority of Armenia and the Caucasus region. Quite a powerful faction, but they are definitely weaker than us still. So we have some cordial relations with them, non-aggression, trade, very basic stuff. Our old enemies, the Khwarezmian Empire, are now not really much of an empire at all. They only have a few provinces left. They do have some allies and client states around them, but they're still fighting the Mongols. Unfortunately, we didn't get to fight the Mongols in this campaign. They've kind of just been stuck on the fringes of Persia, way out here in this area I'm highlighting, where we can't even see what's going on out there. So all we know is that the Mongols are stuck way out in the east, and that's actually good news for us, so we'll take it for sure. Moving forward, though, Caliph Jafar has recuperated his army, and now he'll be marching on the final Crusader stronghold of Aqaba. The garrison is not very large. His army is dedicated entirely with infantry, so he has basically the perfect army to storm the settlement. He's going to besiege it for basically a couple years, though. He doesn't want to rush this assault on the city. Otherwise, he will take massive casualties. So that siege is going to last at least 2 years here. In the meantime, further north, we are trying to consolidate our position over the territories we've recently taken, especially in Cyprus. So the city of Famagusta will be having the General Yahya set there. And Yahya is the son of Caliph Jafar. He's not the most able son, not necessarily all that intelligent, and he isn't experienced because he's only 18 years old, so definitely very new to this, but hopefully this minor command in Cyprus will be enough to give him some experience to continue the line of the Abbasids underneath his father's glory of Caliph Jafar. And Caliph Jafar has been doing really well. The army that took over Cyprus, which is led by Hussein the Brave, brother of Caliph Jafar, is marching towards Syria right now. And they will be getting in a position outside of Lebanon because we are breaking off all diplomatic ties with the Ayyubid Sultanate. That's right, in our final episode for today, we are planning to launch an all-out invasion against the Ayyubids to finally cement the Abbasid Caliphate as the undisputed rulers of the Islamic world. However, things are not all well in the Abbasid Caliphate, at least not in the Abbasid family. The brother of Caliph Jafar, Aziz, is currently siring illegitimate children. He's very disloyal to the Caliph. He's been disloyal ever since their father Muhammad died. And there's just been nothing that we can do to appease him. He's been given commands, he's been given promotions and all kinds of things. He just does not give a stuff about what we have to offer him. So Caliph Jafar is going to do something a little bit provocative, a little interesting here. And brother Masood of the Caliph, who is also relatively disloyal, is being ordered by the Caliph to attempt to assassinate the brother of the Caliph, Aziz. So hopefully Masood pulls it off, kills Aziz. That way we get rid of the disloyal brother, potentially nullify any chance of a rebellion happening, led by his brother, of course, and then Masood can prove his loyalty in the process. However, it backfires entirely. Masood is caught before he can actually kill his brother Aziz, and now the Caliph has to make a decision on who he wants to make an example out of. Or he could just forget the situation and basically not acknowledge that this massive political drama has just occurred. So after much deliberation, Caliph Jafar decides to use the excuse that he's currently on campaign, fighting the Crusaders, and he has no care or time to care for this drama. So basically he ignores what happens. His brother Aziz wants to get revenge against Masood. So Aziz actually plans to assassinate Masood as well. That is absolutely not a good thing for the Caliph. Masood was slightly more loyal than Aziz. Hussein the Brave has been extremely loyal to the Caliph though throughout this entire reign, so he's not involved in the drama whatsoever. But the brother Aziz actually does kill Masood. So now the most disloyal and arguably the most evil of all of the brothers of the Caliph has actually killed a brother of the Caliph. Masood is dead. He's been assassinated. It's very widespread knowledge. It's public knowledge that Aziz is responsible for this death, but there's no actual evidence of this. Thus, the Caliph cannot just immediately execute or arrest Aziz, but he'll most likely deal with this once he's done with his campaign in the Sinai region. But yeah, so far the Abbasid family, it is not turning out to be as strong as the Caliph would hope. Perhaps so if Caliph Jafar can deal with Aziz right here, then Jafar and Hussein can lead the family to glory once more. Aqaba is now going to be finally assaulted. I won't bother showing you guys the entire siege. We'll just go through some snippets here because it was kind of interesting. But the Crusaders just didn't have enough forces in the area, and while they did have an army in the region nearby, in this mod, you actually can't land your troops unless you have a port settlement. So the Crusader army that's stuck on the ocean can't actually come in and help them out. So we'll just go over a few little snapshots of the siege. You can see the damage that was already done to the siege and the outskirts of it due to the length of the siege. Like I said, it went for about 2 years. Now trebuchets did their thing that they've been doing consistently throughout the last few episodes of this campaign. They've been annihilating the city walls, and then we have thousands of arrows coming in and slaughtering the Crusaders. They do try to sally out. As soon as they leave the protection of their walls, though, they are hammered once again by our archers and fireballs from our trebuchets coming in. It's just an absolute mess. There's no way that the Crusaders really could have any kind of chance in this assault. The main reason we waited so long to assault it, though, was just to reduce the casualties that our men would take. At least that was the goal. But after dealing with the troops that tried to sally out against us, We sent in our spearmen, formed a spear wall just in time to deal with the enemy cavalry that actually charged us. We did take some losses in that charge. The heavy cavalry of the Crusaders is extremely powerful. However, they are very limited in numbers, and so since they charged our contingent of spearmen, our trebuchets did the work with the rest of the city, and the city of Aqaba fell quite quickly before the Crusaders even had time to retreat. And with that, the city of Aqaba is gone, the kingdom of Jerusalem along with it, and Jerusalem now... And although Jerusalem still rests under Ayyubid control, it is still firmly under Muslim control, which is of course the most important thing to us, although eventually, very soon, it will come back to Abbasid control, as we are obviously the rightful leaders of the Ummah. But thankfully with the Crusaders gone, things will be looking good. However, the Ethiopians are back. The new king of the Mercurians is leading a massive army once again around Arabia through the Indian Ocean, and they will be coming up towards the Persian Gulf very soon. We do have an all-cavalry army led by General Hakam, one of the most loyal generals of the Caliphate. He's been just north of Baghdad with his all-cavalry contingent, so him and another general will be organizing troops in and around Baghdad. And then when the time is right, they'll combine them into a single massive army to basically deal with the Ethiopians before they can engage our troops at Baghdad or any other settlement. At least that's the idea. We do have our client state, the Seljuks, with an army in the area. However, as soon as the Ethiopians land, the Seljuks dishonor us considerably by retreating. The Ethiopians make landfall just west of the Oman region, and they begin marching straight towards Baghdad, and the Seljuks run out of their way out of cowardly fear. And that's just unacceptable to us. We won't forget that. In the meantime, though, the Reconquista has been completed. While we don't know the exact details, all we do know is that the Abbasid Caliphate and any other Islamic factions in Spain have been either wiped out or subjugated by the Christians in the area. Definitely not good news for the Ummah in the West. Continuing forward, the Mercurians are now just only a few months away from Baghdad itself. The Seljuks continue their dishonorable retreat away despite us ordering them to try and deal with the Ethiopians. But we should be okay. We do have our armies preparing just around Baghdad, and they're preparing fairly quickly. We have a good amount of cavalry, very good cavalry as well, under General Hakam, and then General Jahan is organizing troops in Baghdad, so they'll be combining them right here, and then once they combine their troops, they'll be positioning the entire army along the Euphrates here, and this is the major crossing towards Baghdad. So the Ethiopians, if they do want to hit Baghdad, they need to come right through here. That means that they have to come through our main army, so we should be able to stop them there. In the meantime, the Ayyubids are actually sending a fairly sizable force towards Mecca. The Ayyubids lost Mecca to the former Sharifah of Mecca. The custodians of Mecca, in one way, basically lost the city of Mecca to the Ayyubids early on in the campaign, and they've thus been in exile for some time. However, the Ayyubids are sending an army down to try and take back control over the holy city very soon, so we've got to be careful of that when we begin our invasion. Speaking of invasion, after just another couple turns, the Mercurians are attacking the city of Kufah. We did get a general with a couple troops just inside in addition to the garrison. So combining that with General Hakam's forces right here, the Ethiopians attempt to retreat deep into the desert. But if one thing is for certain, you cannot hide from the Abbasid Caliphate in the desert, our original homeland. The Ethiopians do not stand a chance in our homeland. And here we are on the battlefield. Figured this was a battle worthy of showing you all. We have two full armies going against each other. The Abbasid Caliphate with the sun behind their backs marches straight forward towards the Ethiopians over the sand dunes here. The Ethiopians, while they are very skilled fighters, excellent archers, they are not accustomed to such heat and hostile terrain. Thankfully, though, the Abbasid Caliphate has vast experience among its many Arab warriors fighting in this kind of territory, so we should be doing pretty fine with this. It just depends on what kind of tactics the Ethiopians try to use. We have our general in the rear though. We then also have our cavalry reinforcing from the city of Kufah, so that will be very helpful. The Ethiopians try to mask their positioning by constantly sending their cavalry from one flank to another, putting up a bit of a smoke screen in front of their army, in addition to basically making us second guess what exactly the tactics will be here. They do have their archers in front, swords in the rear, and then spearmen in the center. But we just continue pushing hard very, very quickly. We want to take over the largest sand dune, in fact, that's right in front of the Ethiopian formation. And just as we begin to crest, you can see here the Ethiopians do an all-out charge. Their cavalry begins charging forward extremely quickly, trying to catch our archers off guard. It doesn't work, and our infantry are in position to try and hold them. Our cavalry get attack orders on the left and the right-hand flank, and the enemy begins smashing into us across all flanks right here. You can see the Ethiopians did try to pull away a little bit, but then as they pull away, they also turn back and begin charging. So a bit of a skirmishing kind of tactic, but also a little bit of a bait and switch. So they did very well, actually, and they will get the charges off against us. But we do have infantry nearby, and our archers, you can see, are also providing fire support from the safety of the top of the massive sand dune right here. So our archers will be pretty pivotal in this battle. Unfortunately, our left-hand flank did take some charges, although you will note the battle replay wasn't entirely accurate for this. It did kind of become a little bit corrupted at some point, but this is the gist of the battle. The infantry of the Ethiopians did end up charging forward right into our spear wall, and we had our spearmen at the very front combined with swordsmen on the flanks and in the rear in reserve. Spearmen held very strong against the Ethiopian infantry. Even against our swordsmen, they were just no match for the armor and the skill of our Arab warriors. The Caliphate has certainly begun training the best that they can. The general, our general, is getting involved in the mix, while the Ethiopian king is also trying to encourage his men get close to the fighting. The left-hand flank is kind of looking pretty dicey. It's definitely leaning towards the Ethiopian way. However, the right-hand flank is looking far more favorable to us over here. You can see we have two of our own units fighting one of their own units in two separate engagements. So that's going to go very well. And once we get through that cavalry, we're going to go ahead and chase down the enemy archers and deal with them very quickly. And once we get rid of the cavalry and the archers, the Ethiopian infantry won't stand a chance whatsoever, although their camels do come in with a very nice charge right there. Before our cavalry can even get involved in the infantry fight, though, the Ethiopians begin retreating from the field. At least their infantry do. They can't stand the Abbasid's shield wall. And with that happening, our generals begin pushing forward alongside of our cavalry. And while the Ethiopians do fight bravely and organize some very strategical ambushes with their archers, it's just not good enough. And then with that, we begin pushing forward. We do lose the captain of our garrison, which isn't a big deal. That is why it says our general's fallen. But at the end of the day, the Ethiopians are once again stopped just outside of Baghdad once again. Here are these statistics if you'd like to have a little quick look at them. General Hakam serves the Caliphate very, very well. He loses just under 500 warriors, and in doing so, he annihilates almost the entirety of the Makurian army. That's absolutely excellent. It just went pretty much as well as the previous engagement did against the Ethiopians. We couldn't really ask for much more from him. He will certainly be rewarded by the Caliph very, very well. Of course, the Ethiopians will be executed. They won't be given any kind of chance whatsoever to join our forces. They dishonor us by trying to attack our capital unprovoked. We've only ever launched one invasion against them, and that was in retaliation. So they will be hunted down in the desert and killed by our riders before they can escape back to East Africa. The general station in Kufah leads his cavalry and finishes them off. Meanwhile, after we have dealt with the Ethiopian threat, it's time for us to begin our final major war of the campaign, which is of course targeting the Ayyubids. We want to take Alexandria as soon as we can. The garrison is quite small, although they do have a sizable, about 10 stack army inside of the city, and they will also be positioning our armies further north around Palestine and Lebanon. After our armies begin moving in position, we send an ultimatum to the Ayyubid Sultanate. They can become a client state or war, and of course they choose war. Very foolishly, but they choose it. So the Caliph, who is now recognized as Jafar the Cruel after allowing his brothers to kill each other, is now leading the assault on Alexandria. He will be besieging that city for quite some time. However, the real jewel of this campaign will be taking Jerusalem, one of the holiest cities in the world, and Hussein the Brave, with his relatively newly recruited army, actually is being assigned the honor of besieging and taking the city. So whether Hussein can take it or not, we'll have to wait and see. In the meantime, though, we have another general, General Rasul, leading the siege of Acre. The city there is very small, only a very small garrison, so it should be easily taken. The son of the Caliph, who's supposed to be hanging out in Cyprus, actually disobeys orders sent by the Caliph, and General Yahya here ends up assaulting the city of Acre from the coast, while we also have our major army attacking from land. So with such overwhelming force, the garrison in Acre simply cannot hope to withstand such an assault, and the city is taken with fairly minimal losses. With that city out of the way, we now control the majority of Lebanon. Now it is time to move south towards the Holy Land and take over Palestine by taking the city of Jerusalem. If we could take Jerusalem, the Ayyubids will be absolutely humbled to their knees. They do have the city of Alexandria and Cairo, but the majority of their forces are spread quite thin, defending multiple cities on multiple fronts. So, ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the final siege of this campaign, the siege of Jerusalem. Here is Hussein the Brave in his chainmail armor, very recognizable small, flowery, beautiful shield, and his mace. At the very front of our army, of course, and he's immediately taking fire from the enemy siege equipment. Hussein the Brave, forever living up to his name, the Brave, is standing at the very front of our army, demonstrating to our troops the resolve that they must have if they wish to take the city of Jerusalem. Our siege equipment begins bombarding the enemy, returning the favor that they're already giving out to us. They do only have a single siege unit targeting our men, but it's extremely accurate and killing many of Hussein's personal bodyguard. His bodyguards plead for Hussein to listen to reason and move out of the way. That's all he has to do. But Hussein absolutely refuses to do so, and instead begins ordering his troops forward, and he holds his position despite the majority of his personal bodyguard being killed. And in fact, he just had a cannonball land right next to him right there, so it's extremely worrying. Hussein himself might be killed in the fire, but he does not care, for he must represent the will of the Ummah before the enemy, and so he just does so very bravely. In the meantime, our archers begin a combination of standard shot and flaming arrows upon the enemy garrison. The Ayyubids are very good fighters. They have absolutely earned the title of Sultanate very well with their fighting, and so we do have to try and whittle them down as much as we can with our siege equipment and with our archers. The Abbasid archers are now famed throughout the Middle East in dealing massive damage and blotting out the sun, just as the Persians have many thousands of years ago, many hundreds of years ago at this point. Once our ammunition is getting somewhat low, we begin moving forward. Our shock infantry, our two-handed axemen, will lead the charge in this battle. Finally, the enemy's siege equipment is taken care of, so Hussein's bodyguards are no longer being annihilated, but he has lost about 60+% of his personal bodyguards, so he won't be leading the charge in this final assault, at least not if his personal bodyguard retinue can help and can stop him, I should say. We get two main breaches in the walls of the enemy settlement. Not really a lot to work with, but it should be enough. The men have the morale at an all-time high. and every man is absolutely determined to take the city of Jerusalem and to be the first over the walls. So now that the gate's destroyed, there's two major openings on either side of the gate. Our swordsmen form up a shield wall just in front of them, and then our axemen are sent forward to deliver the initial shock charges against the enemy. We do also have our knife throwers just behind our axemen, which are waiting to be sent in to try and deal specialized damage when needed. But for now, the assault begins with just our two-handed axemen getting involved throughout all of the major breaches that we've managed to formulate. We have 3 units of double-handed axemen going in the left and right-hand side of the breaches right here. Just one that was supposed to go off the main gate, although it's a little bit buggy, so it's a little bit unfortunate. And we are taking enemy crossbow fire. They have a lot of crossbows actually in this garrison, so it's quite concerning. We do need to get our infantry engaged as quickly as possible, and our archers will begin targeting them in the meantime. However, our knife throwers do finally get involved, where we begin to find a massive concentration of heavy Ayyubid swordsmen. So our knife throwers will be sent forward right here, and now you're about to see them unleash their deadly volley. The enemy infantry is all clumped up and an absolutely perfect target for our knife throwers. And while there will be a little bit of friendly fire, our knife throwers begin throwing in volley after volley, and you'll be seeing minor explosions going off amongst the absolutely really large and dense blob that the Ayyubids are presenting their troops in. And of course we also have our trebuchets continuing with their flaming shot in the background. As our axemen begin to tire and we start to take somewhat heavy casualties with them, our swordsmen are now sent into the fray as well. The right hand side is not doing very well. We're making very slow ground, although our knife throwers do kind of need to get more involved and deal some more damage. Our trebuchets are now getting low on ammunition. Our archers do have a lot of ammo, but they're not getting a lot of kills, as the enemy is quite heavily armored, fairly similar to our own troops. However, our knife throwers get some amazing shots right here and deal massive damage and catastrophic casualties to the enemy formation. Combining that with the flaming arrows coming in and us pouring more troops into the gaps in the walls, the Ayyubids will now begin to buckle along the walls and will begin to push them back. We do get some major routs, although many of the Ayyubids fight down to the last man and have to be killed entirely. So credit to the Ayyubids, they definitely fought well and bravely, but combining Hussein's leadership and bravery alongside the technology that the knife throwers have to offer, it's just not going to be good enough for the Ayyubids, and so the Ayyubids do begin to be slaughtered by the thousands. We begin charging down the streets towards the center of Jerusalem. Our axemen are still leading the charge, although they're very exhausted and have taken very large casualties as well, so we're not expecting too much from them. All we need them to do though is basically pin the enemy troops in position while our swordsmen come in and back them up from behind. With our smaller contingents, we'll also be flanking the enemy troops and trying to deal as much damage to them as we can. The garrison of Jerusalem, the general that is stationed there, is leading a two-handed axeman unit of his own, and so we will try and surround him as quickly as we can with axemen, swordsmen, and our knife throwers. And the sooner we can kill the captain of Jerusalem, the sooner we can force the enemy garrison to surrender. At least hopefully that's the idea behind it. But we get some devastating volleys with our knife throwers. Once again, they're just absolutely savage. And combining the knife throwers with some more archer fire coming in and surrounding with our axemen and swordsmen, the enemy garrison ends up being slaughtered, or they retreat off the field of battle, and Hussein the Brave leads his personal retinue into the center of Jerusalem and raises the Abbasid flag. Jerusalem belongs to the Caliphate once again. And we have a decisive victory. We lose almost 1,000 men, just a bit over 700, but it is a small price to pay for Jerusalem once again coming under the firm control of the Abbasid Caliphate, as it should be, of course. Like I said, we have a decisive victory. The army inside of Jerusalem and the garrison are killed down to the last man, and some of them managed to retreat as well. Hussein the Brave's army will be renamed, and it will also be given extra traits to prove its loyalty and integrity to their extremely brave and inspiring leader. And now the army will now become the champions of Jerusalem, and this army will be forever stationed in Jerusalem as its protectors, at least as long as the Abbasids rule. Caliph Jafar continues his assault on the city of Alexandria. However, ladies and gentlemen, for all intents and purposes, the Ayyubid Sultanate is done, as is our campaign. I do apologize we can't see the Siege of Alexandria, but unfortunately the update for the 1212 AD mod was pushed before I could record it. So anyway, everybody, I really hope you all enjoyed this campaign. I know some of you guys wanted to see it go for a really long time. I really appreciate their love and support. Some of you guys didn't, and that's okay. I just really appreciate you all being willing to check out other games and mods with me. Not that this is all that different from Total War Rome 2, but it's been an absolute blast, and I look forward to doing more Total War Attila campaigns and mods for you guys in the future. There will still be more 1212 AD online battles, not as much as the DEI battles we'll be doing, but feel free to join our Discord to get more up-to-date information on what will be released on the channel. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much for watching. I really do hope you've all enjoyed this campaign, and I shall see you in the next one.